Apologize. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Did you really think I was fodder? Yes. And what made you even think that? Lancelot? Mainly Lancelot. Thank you to our final patrons, Sinus Lancelot, Artgoon, Praise the Sun, and Strawbones. A big thank you to our nice $69 tier patron, Brian. Now, before we hop into this breakdown / review of chapter 63 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, please leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early videos, and more. Now, let's get into last week's poll. So last week, I was mainly interested in trying to figure out what you guys thought was going to occur. Obviously, with the advent of last week's chapter showing Pellegarde getting nearly bisected, Percy getting thrown away, and a sucker punch to Gawain's mouth, war had been declared. So I gave you all 5 options to choose from. And with those 5 options, you either had the choice of death to pop, Pellegarde getting packed up and popping out with the spare Percy. I wish the spare Percy was also a piece so I could alliterate that even more. However, then you had the Sun versus Twilight. Tristan steps in and saves Pell and Percy, which almost happened. Kind of. Maybe. But then you have the Sun versus the Blaze. Pellegarde activates his Chaos Staff and beats Gawain's... Let me not say that, but essentially Pellegarde fighting back, saving his life. And then we had Sun v War. Lance steps in to stop the Sun and save Percy. Spicy. And then finally, Return of the King. Meliodas shows up to stop Gawain like he stopped Escanor many a year ago. And with a juicy, thick, girthy, if you will, 64% of the vote, the Return of the King won. I think we're all kind of just feeding for Meliodas at this point. Like, I really don't even blame y'all. Mainly because, like, I feel like there's this misconception around King Meliodas that, like, he's a traditional king who's fodder and, like, just lingers around the castle worriedly at all times. When not even 10 chapters ago, he was literally wandering around the kingdom setting up for a party. Like, the dude has no reason to just be chilling at the castle. Like, oh no, hope will be snatched away. Maybe you should go stop the hope from being snatched away. Like, you can literally sense Pellegarde leaving the kingdom with one of the 4 knights who you've already encountered. So Meliodas, what are you doing? Standing around. But regardless, that took the lead with 64% of the vote. Then the follow-up was a massive ways behind at 18%. The Sun versus Twilight. Tristan versus Gawain is actually something I was really excited to see. I don't know. That was something that I would have extremely appreciated, mainly because the fact that Tristan went and got Gawain and didn't necessarily have much of a connection with them at first. So seeing them go to conflict would have been extremely interesting, especially considering we got the Triskelion and Demon Eye. It seemed like we were going to get some conflict with him doing something, but hey, they want to be like this sometimes. Then the runner-up is Death to Papa. It's only 7% out of 222 votes, so I'm not necessarily surprised that 7% of y'all thought Pellegarde was just gonna die. And to be fair, I would have been down for it. Like, that character development would have gone crazy. But then following up with that, we had Sun v War. Lance steps in to stop the Sun. That was another one that I was actually kind of expecting, mainly because Lance probably feels like he messed up, considering he's just gone. Like, he actually just straight let Percy get kidnapped, and Percy is essentially his responsibility right now. So I was figuring he would come in and like be like, hey, it's alright. Can't let you steal that man though. And then hop in and stop him. Then finally we had the lowest, which ironically enough, minus the chaos stuff part, was pretty darn accurate. The Sun v Blaze. Pellegarde kind of saved himself this chapter. Clout to Pellegarde's name. Clout to Pellegarde's name. All of a sudden he was fodder after he got like, it looked like he got one tapped. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Gawain appeared in front of him, he couldn't even comprehend what was happening, and then he got, like, all he could do was throw away Percy. He couldn't even parry. He couldn't do nothing of the sort. So, he really juked us. However, thank you for everyone, all 222 of y'all, for voting on last week's poll. I love doing these polls. They're a great way to get a community consensus on these chapters and the thoughts that come after these chapters, especially on this like week by week format. I don't know. It's fun getting those thoughts fresh off the press and then seeing how they compare to the next chapter. So I really enjoy doing those. Make sure you get your thoughts on tomorrow's poll, dropping at 12 p.m. to make sure you get your input for next week's review. Now, let's get into Chapter 63. What's up, guys? I'm the Pencil here, and here we are to review Chapter 63 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, which is known as Taming the horse, aka you really, you can't. Even if Gawain identifies as male, you really can't say that. But regardless, let's hop right into the chapter itself. Suck a lot. Actually, I want to talk about the cover page a little bit. Am I the only one who forgot Sylvain was even a character? like straight up, I completely, it blanked my mind that he even existed in the narrative. And I went out of my way to actually put him in my character ranking. I know for a fact, because on the second channel, there is a drawing of him up there because I put him in that character ranking video. But for some reason, if Donnie, Anne, and Nasians instantly became the cheerleading squad, Sylvain vanished. Like straight up. I keep calling him Sylvain. It's Sylvain. I'm sorry, Sylvain from Fire Emblem Three Houses. But the names are too similar. But I don't know, him showing up on this cover page kind of blew my mind. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh yeah. The horse with an actual personality. Where did they leave him? Is he at a stable? I'm pretty sure he went to the castle with them. I'm really wondering where Sylvain is at. Because he's not with the group. We saw he wasn't with the group, so maybe he's just vibing, living a good life. Maybe he's with Hawk. I don't know. The thing is, though, we don't know where Hawk... there's so many characters who are kind of just, up in the air right now. So, who knows? However, let's actually hop into the chapter itself. So we open up, and we get to see that we're continuing right where we left off. Percival has just knocked the taste into Gawain's mouth, and Tristan's trying to catch up as Pellegarde is dipping, dropping, falling. And notably, Pellegarde, with what you go on to show later in this chapter, how did you get sliced? But he reacted. I don't know. That's the thing. That's the only thing that feels weird. I know last week was supposed to end up on a cliffhanger. That's why she straight and yet I get the narrative purpose behind it. But at the same time, with what Pellegarde goes to do later on in this chapter, the fact that he's just free falling and that Percy needs to save him, I don't know. If Percy didn't go out of his way to save Pellegarde here, would he have just landed on his feet? I really don't know. But enough of that. What is interesting to see, and what I do really appreciate, is the level of finesse that Percy has over his magic now. Once again, Pellegarde is sort of a circular character. He showed up at very early on within the narrative, vanished for a whole ton of it, and now that the plot is plotting, plotting mad hard right now, he's back here, and we get to see the evolution of Percy between the two periods. Back when Percy first unlocked his magic, it was kind of just, his power was rising, it's over falling. But now, he's sort of in such high and fine-tuned control that he managed to flicker it on, dive for Pellegarde, get underneath him, flicker it off immediately, and land. I don't know. I think, it's minor. It's not, the most craziest flex of the whole magic, but, Percy's ability to just flicker it on and off. Really, really cool. I like the little details of power progression and growth there. The fact that all of this time that Percy has spent with Lance and his gang, just fighting, growing stronger, developing as a warrior, it's not going to waste. All of his experiences are culminating in a much stronger warrior than the one Pellegarde saw, experienced, and fought with last time. And now this warrior is paying Pellegarde back for the save by catching him. And we get to see, Percy's always been established to be strong, but Pellegarde's a pretty big dude compared to him. So it's amazing that Percy managed to land and catch him on pretty much 1 foot. I love the relationship between these two. Pellegarde is you literally exasperate me. Or, once again, I always picture Pellegarde speaking very loud and very bombastically, bass, extreme bravado in his voice, but I can literally hear him saying "Whew, you exasperate me. Why are you aiding your enemy?" Pellegarde, I guess, I don't know, Percy, you were just trying to escape him. I know, the thing is, I feel I'm really not sure how to feel about Percy's non-kill rule. Straight, would that even really be a kill on Percy's fault? Thinking about it logistically, there was no reason to save Pellegarde there. You were just trying to escape. Gawain in essence, sure, as revealed later on in this chapter, she may have been trying to cut you up, my boy. But you know, so it also should be cut up. No, not cut up, but clicked on the like button. It greatly helps on the channel, greatly helps me out, greatly helps this video reach out to multiple other people. So please, if you don't mind, hit the like button. Also, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. We got a whole ton of content like this coming weekly, with a whole bunch of 4 nice content and 7 Daily Sins content coming year round. However, back to the content, back to the chapter. Like, Percy, what's the benefit of saving Pellegarde here, logistically? Like, I get it, he saved you, and that's something that Percy immediately points out, like, well, you did cover for me. And it's just like, dude, homie's actively in the middle of kidnapping you, away from your friends, the source of your powers, supposedly. Like, am I crazy? Like, I feel like Percy should not be so down to save him, but I guess it's just the way that Percy is. And like I said, I'm not sure how I feel about that, especially considering this feels so, I'm not going to say random. No, it does feel kind of random, because like none of this no killing stuff was with Talisker. I know you're like, Pencil, if you could stop bringing up Talisker. But no, like every single time I think of this no killing rule and how like shoved in and baked into Percy's character it is now, I'm like, dude, where was this energy with Talisker? Do you have the same energy with Ironside? You have the same energy with King Arthur. Like, are you seriously on the Sparran route right now? And for what reason? I get maybe you don't want to give into your identity as one of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse, the Knight of Death, but at the same time, these are not your friends. They are your extreme enemies. And who know, like, and once again, on Pellegarde's front, right? Like, if I'm Percy in a scenario and I'm being kidnapped by Pellegarde, he may say he's not going to take me to King Arthur, but what's going to stop his king from finding out about me? Pellegarde probably doesn't know the full extent of King Arthur's powers, no matter how much of a bro he seems to King Arthur. Arthur is a demon, and so is Merlin. And so I don't think, like, going with Pellegarde at all just simply doesn't seem safe here on Percy's part. Like, it just seems like the least optimal decision to make. So if he would have splatted, you know, maybe I would have just been like, oh, be like that, wouldn't it be like that sometimes? Zoom, and then fly back off behind Tristan so I can be safe. But whatever. Moving on from the whole weird idea of Percy being super sparing, nice, ultra amazing super dude of the century, we get to see that when Pellegarde is questioned, like, well, excuse me, if we're talking smack about who's covering who, why'd you cover for me? And Pellegarde reveals that what's wrong with protecting someone I care about. Now, notably, thank you for everyone in the comment section. Y'all always be educating me. And apparently, in Arthurian mythology, Pellegarde the Black Knight is supposed something along the line. See, this, I need to take notes. But like, Pellegarde is supposedly Percy's father, but I don't think that's the case here, because Ironside seems to be pretty solidly Percy's father. And it just, like, I consistently joke around that Pellegarde is essentially just Percy's uncle and or godfather, which would kind of explain this whole idea that he does care about him. Like, I don't know any external reason other than that. Like, I get interest can go a long way, right? Like, whenever I'm interested in something, I will pursue it with decent effect, but I'm not going to risk my life for it. But Pellegarde's out here literally risking everything while fighting Gawain just because he cares about Percy. So I wonder where this care is coming from, where it's stemming from. Maybe it's just out of, like, respect for Percy's deceased mother or something like that. Like, I actually seriously don't know. But it's cool to see that there is a deeper reasoning and a deeper plot behind this whole idea that Pellegarde is so passive when it comes to Percy. And as we'll see, a majority of the knights. However, we get to see that Percy, having no understanding of this kind of scenario and interaction, is like, bro, you're just a weirdo. Stop kidnapping kids. But of course, we get to see that Pellegarde, he's struggled a little bit with his wounds. However, there ain't much time to be worrying about Pellegarde's wounds, because someone's gonna come and give Percy some wounds. And with us, for some reason, I love the stomp effect here with Gawain. And I think it's mainly for the fact that, they purposely slammed on the ground. Like, we just a page ago, we got the difference in landings, right? Like, Percy gently landed on one foot, showing that if you have some sort of control of your momentum, you can just, like, land gently and efficiently. But in a fit of rage, Gawain lands with the stomp with weight, to the point where Percy turns around with actual abject terror on his face. And once again, it's the non-verbal storytelling, I suppose. Like, it's a good way to show the difference between these two characters. Percy, a gentle, kind, green-haired boy, and Gawain, a bloodlusted demon with sunshine. And we get to see that Gawain ain't playing no games, because golly, she buried her foot so deep in his gut, it turned his back to sketch lines. Bruh. Golly G Williker. And, like, the thing is, it is and unless I'm mistaken, right? It seems like she landed with her right foot. So she lands with her right foot, plants her left foot, allows Percy to turn around just that slight 180 degrees, and buries her foot dead in his gut. Golly gee williker. Like, I understand this is kind of like an eye for an eye, essentially, because really, from Gawain's point of view, Percy's kind of just being dumb. and that's the weird thing, right? Like, even in my initial read-through of the chapter, which you can check out on the Patreon for as low as $1 a month, but, like, in my initial read-through of the chapter, I'm like, Gawain isn't exactly wrong. like legitimately, what she's doing here isn't exactly incorrect. She's getting retribution for the fact that she literally got punched in the mouth, and two, is straight up wondering, like, this is our enemy. Why are you sparing him? You need to go. and I really don't even, I really couldn't even get mad at her for that. However, one thing I do also appreciate is how rigid Gawain is. And this kind of builds into an idea that is prevalent later. Earlier on, you sort of got an idea that Gawain was a bit more fluid in terms of their motions. However, you can see by the stances, they're much more like, do this, do this, do this. And that sort of leads into an idea that's brought up on later in the chapter. And, Gawain, she got some bars. Like straight up. If we were putting Gawain and Escanor bar for bar, it'd be a close match. I ain't even gonna lie to you, bruh. I am descended from a mighty king. Defying me is like trying to defy heaven. Bro, tell me that's not heat. Tell me that's not heat. Bro, I'm not sure if I'm descended from a mighty king, but I'm gonna steal that line anyway. I'll just steal the second half. I don't even need the mighty king line, bro. It's just, defying me is like trying to defy heaven. Bro, that's a bore. And I love, one of the main things that I appreciate in this chapter, before the end twist, is that Gawain just seems so firm in her absolute, once again, like Escanor was when he first showed up in the narrative and got into his prideful state. There is such affirmation, such confidence, such simplicity. Like, this is just a fact. Like, I 100% believe, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, in this moment, she truly believes she's the equivalent to heaven. Like, straight up, there's no doubt in her mind that she is supreme enough to make that kind of comparison with a straight face. And you can tell Percy doesn't necessarily have much to say in reaction, because like I said, she took her foot and buried it really deep into him. Like, from the looks of it, the way his, like, body is concaving around her toes, which I know some of y'all will be into, but the way his body is concaving around her toes and the crack sounds that are going on, she likely snapped a couple of his ribs. Like, straight up, that kick did extreme damage to Percy, which once again shows the extreme gap in not just power, but speed between the two. Because Percy couldn't even react to defend himself here. He just immediately got blitzed, and his ribs are cracking. Sure, he doesn't have his hope amps up, he doesn't have any despair amps, none of that is present, but still, for him, Percy, our MC, to casually get blitzed and cracked up like this, Kinda crazy. Kinda crazy also is the fact that you may or may not have hit the like button yet. It would really help out the channel if you did. Just, pause the video, quick, hit the like button. It greatly helps me out. Also, new here, you get the subscribe button. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. However, the thing is that, and once again, I love it. It's the, as opposed to the way I would describe the emotions are absolute, firm, rigid, total. Once again, that absolute confidence that Gawain has in the idea that she truly is equivalent to heaven is just shown in the movements. In the same panel where she says, know your place, she managed, and like, let's see, she literally managed to remove her right foot from Percival so quickly and then smack him hard enough that he couldn't even drop anywhere. Like, initially I thought Percy was higher in the air, but no, Percy is about level to her shoulders when she kicked him dead in the gut, and then she proceeds to slap him from that same spot so quickly that you can't even see her leg retract. And once again, Nakaba is one of my favorites at what I'd like to call subtle speed. Like, the implication that he didn't have to do like, this character so speedy, Gonzalez. Like he didn't have to do all that. All he had to show, all he had to do was literally, it's gonna sound kind of weird, all he had to do was cut a frame. Like, you could have had an in-between shot where her foot comes back and then she reels back and then bam, you have this panel where she slaps him away. But no, Nakaba, in a way to show how superior Gawain is to Percival, simply cuts and you just bam, the motion is so fluid. Honestly, it's amazing. And I really, some things that Nakaba does in terms of his action scenes don't necessarily translate the best over to the anime. However, I'm intrigued to see how moments like this do, like these quick bursts of motion. I really wonder how the anime is going to adapt this. However, once again, we get to see that Percy, he's just not one of them. Like, unfortunately, he's just not built different enough. Like, that once the kick in the slap combo has bloodied him and nearly knocked him out. However, we see that finally Tristan has actually gotten within range and manages to save Percival from bouncing everywhere. And interestingly enough, he is trying to just end it. Like, he's declaring enough already. Like, this is it. You have to beat on him enough. And once again, like, it's notably Gawain's argument sort of falls apart here based on what Tristan says. And I guess I could kind of see it, I'm not gonna lie. But we see that Gawain tries to argue for logic once again, like, out of my way, Prince Tristan. That child attacked me as I was dispatching the enemy. Once again, kind of just building into my idea that Gawain just doesn't listen. Like, she was called the Four Knights of the Apocalypse with the rest of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse right next to her and acknowledge all of their presence and literally watch Percival be called it again, but still just calls him that child. Like, there's no way he could be an equal to her. However, we get to see that Tristan realizes that it's not just the case that she was just trying to attack PELLEGARDE. She wasn't just trying to dispatch the enemy. She was trying to slash Percival along with the Knight of Chaos and PELLEGARDE. Which, I mean, like, notably, since I'm trying to, I'm low-key kind of team Gawain here, but I'm trying to think of a logical reasoning for that. But really, if you think about it, she has no reason to necessarily care for Percival since he literally let himself get kidnapped. Like, that was literally just something he straight up allowed. He walked straight up to the enemy, allowed himself to be grabbed, and didn't fight back in any sort of measurable term outside of minor struggles. So probably in Gawain's mind, she's just like, well, that was a bit too easy. Might as well just get rid of them both. And notably, I love the sound Percy makes when healed by Tristan. He's like, ooh, like getting healed by somebody else is much different than getting healed by his own hope magic. That's interesting. But we get to see that with this whole revelation that Gawain was on a murder track, she's like, oh, come on now. Prince Tristan, you sweat the details even more than I thought. Isn't that so tiresome? And, like, Gawain, like, she doesn't know about the death amps. So come on now, like a little bit of common sense. And once again, let me hop off Team Gawain and be like, yo, Gawain, a little bit of common sense. You were there. You know this is one of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Executing him may not be the best thing to do. However, like, I may hop off Team Gawain right there, but I gotta hop back on to Team Sunshine, Team Sun, if you will. Because she straight walks over and is like, move, please, if you don't mind. And Tristan's like, haven't you had enough? And it's the subtle usage of the line, right? Like, this, once again, Nakaba, his whole statement about you could read Four Knights of the Apocalypse without reading Seven Deadly Sins and lose essentially nothing. I think that's partially true. And it's in moments like this where I see both sides, right? Like, the line, I'm the one who decides that. We all know what that means. We all know what that's calling back to. But essentially, if you never read or watched Seven Deadly Sins, that line pretty much means nothing to you. It's just, once again, establishing Gawain's bravado and confidence and certainty in themselves. So I sort of see what Nakaba's going for. Like, that's something, that's a more subtle moment, right? Like, you can't say, oh, you don't have to read Seven Deadly Sins to know and care and understand the world of Four Knights of the Apocalypse in the same way. When you have things like Meliodas ending off a chapter, Gother ending off a chapter, I mean, you can argue that just leads to mystery. I don't know. Like, I may have to make an entire video about that, like talking about Four Knights of the Apocalypse as a fan of Seven Deadly Sins and as a stranger, because I'm not necessarily sure. Like, typically, well, this is because I read Manga first, so obviously I have bias. But like, if someone were to ask me, like, hey, do I read Adventures of Sinbad first or Manga? After reading both, I'd be like, you can do whatever. Like, flip-flop it. It doesn't necessarily matter. Adventures of Sinbad may give you slightly bit more context of Sinbad, but he's kind of a major, like, there are major implications that may or may not even be relevant because of the prequel in Adventures of Sinbad. So do what you will. Meanwhile, with Seven Deadly Sins, I feel like you're missing key moments and elements of the narrative if you didn't read Seven Deadly Sins. Like, this is something that gets that special sauce going just because we're Seven Deadly Sins fans. What do y'all think about that? Do y'all think it's... Would you recommend Four Knights to somebody without Seven Deadly Sins? Say they don't want to read Seven Deadly Sins. The 300 and something chapters is way too intimidating for them, but they wouldn't mind a quick 63 chapter romp. Like, would you recommend them Four Knights first, or would you tell them, no, unfortunately? Well, maybe not tell them, or would you at least recommend them, nah, I think you should read or watch Seven Deadly Sins first, just so you get a piece of it? I don't know. Sorry, I don't want a whole tangent about that, but essentially, really cool line callback to the I'm the one who decides that Escanor. However, we get to see that, we get to learn Tristan's whole idea. So if Percy is all about life, Tristan is all about friendship, because he says he's a knight of prophecy, just like you. Hurting your friends like this, it's just wrong. And it's interesting. It's interesting how quickly he refers to the four knights as friends, considering the only person he's really a friend with is Lance. I wouldn't even say he's a friend with Gawain at this point, considering he literally, in a sense, he literally just met Gawain. Like, if you can't even look somebody in the eye, I highly doubt that as meeting somebody. That's like saying, oh yeah, I met, like, hypothetically, that's like saying, yes, I have spoken with this person through a screen once. We are now friends. Like legitimately, I'm not sure how long Tristan and Gawain's journey are, but the fact that he's referring to them as friends, kind of crazy. However, the most interesting thing is not just Tristan's declaration about the idea of the bonds of friendship and how hurting your friends is wrong, which ironically enough, I think about it, I mean, it's much more of his mother after the end of Bloody Ellie. Because, like, Meliodas was more than willing to molly up his friends if a need be. Like, look what he did to his whole clan. So, maybe Tristan, maybe you need to get a little more demon in your blood, even though you're literally 50%. But the thing is that while Tristan's so focused on the idea of bonds and friendship, Gawain is focused on pretty much the opposite. She doesn't believe in the power of many, she simply believes in the power of one. She simply believes that being compared to Prince Tristan and Percival is simply wrong. Like, it's an injustice. Like, it's a hypothetical injustice. If you haven't clicked the like button yet, it'll greatly help out the channel, greatly help me out, greatly help support the video. Thank you. Also, if you're new here, you can hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate that. However, Gawain, I know you're descended from a mighty king and all that, so obviously you have some clout, but I think you need to brush up on your Britannian lore, because I think you comparing yourself to Tristan is sheer humiliation. Because Tristan is like the most opposite case of a nobody that you could have. Like, literally the grandchild of the two previous gods of the verse, with the supreme deity and the demon king, beings who have created entire realms, one of which is responsible for your own power, which is only a portion of their strength. And then his parents is Meliodas, big, thick, just say something horrible, but big, thick, juicy, girthy Father Meliodas, the strongest demon to literally ever exist. And unless you, like, you could argue the supreme deity counts as a goddess, but if you remove the supreme deity from the running, also the child of the strongest goddess to ever exist in terms of Elizabeth. Gawain, you're garbage. I hate to say it. I really do, but at the end of all things, you're the one who's lacking here. Like, your street cred is, you're the descendant of one mighty king. What, yo, I'm about to steal a DBZ Abridged line. Yo, what is a king to a god? Like, straight up. And I know King Arthur is like, well, I can kind of do both. Shut up, Arthur. But the thing is, like, straight up, Gawain, watch your tone. Watch who you speaking to like that. Don't make Tristan get riled up. Like, straight up, if Tristan truly wanted to here, I am still confident in my heart of hearts, if he were to actually go all out, he would mollywop Gawain, just like his father did Escanor. And we get to see that once again, it's the idea of the many versus the few, and in Gawain's case, the one. She finds friends as nothing more than an excuse for the weak to huddle together, and she, ironically enough, gives a very interesting ultimatum that probably hints into her past. If I will quote, "Remember this, only those stronger than I can give orders to move me around, but I am perfect in every way, so no one can do it. If you disagree, prove it to me, or are your swords just for show?" Now, notably, Tristan is a better man than I, because the moment you clowned on Esterosa, and then again, I be clowning on Esterosa and Mael the entire, I may just have to throw away Mael, I'll keep Esterosa, but the moment you clown on me, the moment you get up in my face like this, the moment you start talking smack, devaluing my name, my credit, my location, my status, my way of birth, everything, well, shoot, it's on sight. And by on sight, I mean it's on death. Like straight up, if I were Tristan in this moment, the moment you said, "Oh, only those stronger than me can order me around," I'd be like, okay, let's see how strong you are then. And like, demon wing, goddess wing, demon wing, goddess wing, triskelion, demon eye, full, like, I would have tried to use chaos magic right then and there. Like, straight up, every last stop would have been pulled out. But that's just me, though. I wouldn't let Gawain talk to me like that. Essentially, that's all I'm saying. I'm not like that, Tristan. Personally, I wouldn't let that slide. However, we get to see, the reason I think this is an interesting point into Gawain's past is it seems like Gawain, regardless of what she actually is, whether or not she is literally just a genuine cousin of Arthur that happens to greatly resemble Merlin, and also happen to get the power of sunshine simply by chance, and or she is a artificial creation of Merlin, very much akin to Gother, not the original Gother, but puppet Gother, that happened to be made as a vessel for sunshine. It seems like Gawain was pretty darn sheltered, with no one in her direct line that would actively challenge her, or at least she seems to take as a direct challenge. Because notably, I don't think Gawain is stronger than Merlin. And I do think Merlin trained Gawain, considering she has access to both absolute cancel, likely has knowledge of how to cast perfect cube, and teleportation magic. And the only person we've ever seen use teleportation magic and have it taught to other people is Merlin. That's the only reason Vivian knows it, because she was trained by Merlin. And I doubt Vivian was training Gawain. So it's very likely that Gawain sort of viewed Merlin as like the standard of perfection, and thus never challenged her, and thus never got humbled. And obviously, if she was living in the general vicinity of Arthur, I feel like just standing around Arthur would make you realize, oh my lord, he is not one of them. Like, straight up, I don't think she would mess with him. However, considering she never challenged them, and thus was never humbled, she's left with this extremely arrogant, extremely braggadocious personality that unfortunately needs someone to check her. Like, straight, she needs a wake-up call. Very similar to Escanor's pride state. Like, remember, the whole thing with Escanor, once he entered the One, was that he was just consumed by absolute arrogance, and he was so confident in his perfection and his power. And what did Meliodas have to do? Slam him through the floor in order to wake him up, and slam him through the floor many and many times again so he could actually control himself during that state. And it seems like we're actually going to get this arc on screen, because one of my things with Seven Deadly Sins that has a lot of interesting character arcs that happen off screen, and that's not necessarily the best. I'm not the biggest fan of Tell Don't Show. I very much prefer Show Don't Tell. So if I were to guess all of the arcs so far for all of our knights, I say Lance's arc is going to be, you know, fighting the Star Visor Knight and maybe getting over maybe the possible death or traitorship or something of his master, Jericho. Then I'm going to say Tristan's arc is going to be him fighting to become a leader in one way or another while trying to avoid the methods his father used, which included, you know, scarring Bond, beating up Escanor, asserting dominance by any means necessary, like trying to suppress his demonic urges, as you can see by how he like almost grabs his blade but clenches his fist as if to hold off from the idea. And then Percival's arc will be the whole idea of grappling with the balance of life and death and trying to determine whether or not he is allowed to take a life. Meanwhile, Gawain's arc will be humbling herself and learning more about the values of other people rather than just believing in solely herself. All really solid arcs for an early part in the narrative, though I do think after a while their arcs will evolve into something different. However, sorry for the super deep analysis, but we get to see that Tristan, in an effort to try and maintain his morals, is like, my blade shall never be pointed at my own allies. And once again, Tristan, I wouldn't let her lay her hands on me like that. Like, that's just me though. That's literally just me though. Like, she straight backhands him. Like, she doesn't, it'd be one thing if she, like, open palm slapped the man, like, Chris, like, if he got Chris rocked, that'd be one thing. But, nah, she backhanded him. There's so many different jokes that I want to make, but I don't want to lose my channel. So, like, essentially, it was mad disrespectful, and Tristan, you are kind of weak for that. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, when she called you a weakling, I kind of low-key had to agree. I ain't even gonna lie. And, like, this backhand is decent enough, too. I know Tristan is in base. Like, man got no triskelion, no wings, no demon, I am nothing. Like, the man's in base. But he literally got sent flying to the point where he had to screech to a stop. That's kind of wild. And Percy, bro. What, dude, what did you really think you were gonna? Maybe that death amp made you a little bit crazy or something. Maybe you thought like, oh, Tristan healed me. This amp go crazy. Like, maybe that's what you thought. Maybe you thought you were someone different. But the fact that you straight up roared at Gawain, say you're sorry, after she literally mollywopped you and the only other person who hypothetically could save you in this scenario, at least from your own knowledge, just got backhanded like there's some kind of $2 gum stick. Like, straight up, I don't exactly know where you, like, the lack of logic here. Percy, I know you don't have survival instinct, but there's got to be some basic logic here. But we get to see that Percy is like, well, you gotta be nice to Prince Tristan. He braved danger to help me and my friends. He's a nice guy. Did he? I mean, like, he braved dangers and, like, he stopped his own squad from mercilessly executing you, and he stopped you from getting revenge on your supposedly dead squad, or getting revenge for your supposedly dead squad. But speaking of things that should be supposedly alive, I think you could hit the like button. I'd greatly appreciate that. It'd really help out the video, really help out the channel a lot. Also, if you could hit the subscribe button if you're new. I'm sorry, I feel like I keep pestering you all with this, but still, I really appreciate it. However, you get to see that, like, first, like, I'm not sure about y'all, but I do peruse around certain, like, online forums and discussions and, like, what ifs, and, like, they're always, all the memers are always like, you don't want to see me when I get mad, like, you better stop that before I get a little bit angry, something like that. And, like, Percy really embodying that right here, right now. He's like, and now you've made me mad. Like, Percy, what does that mean? You aren't going to do anything. You don't have the hopes and cheers of your friends anywhere nearby. So who knows how strong your hope magic can be. It doesn't seem like you have any concept of what the despair magic side of you was. So I don't think you're going to be able to pull that out on command. And Gawain just mollywopped you. Like, what did you really think was going to happen here, bro? Like, with every single fiber of your being, what made you think? And, like, the thing is, ironically enough, I just noticed this. He's actually backing away as he's challenging her. Like, he is straight up, as he's saying, as a girl as unyielding as you, what do you call that? Like, he's literally scurrying backwards and sweating. Like, why are you still speaking? And I love how Tristan is like, wait, no, Percy, don't die. So young, please, don't anger her any further. And what I love even more is how Gawain's face, like, straight up, I'm not gonna lie, she's executed some people before, bro. Like, that is the look of a serial unaliver. I'm not even gonna lie to you, she looks absolutely bloodlusted and insane there. And Percy, like, he straight commits to the bit. Like, he straight up says, oh right, a wild horse, like straight up, I'm confident if that swing that Gawain threw actually landed, Percy's head would be here, there, over there, up in the sky, down below. Back it up too slow, but, like, straight up, he'd be splattered. Because what was he thinking there? What is the logical thought process there? However, luckily enough, we don't have to see the Percy platter splattered everywhere, and we see that this wild horse is gonna be tamed by PELLEGARDE. I won't even lie to you. You can't just say that. Like, the year is the current year. We can't just go around well, is this a thing? Like, I'm not brushed up on my Arthurian mythology, but, like, did you just go around calling wild people wild crazy horses and that you were going to tame them? I don't know. I simply know if I were Gawain, I wouldn't let this slide. However, we get to see that PELLEGARDE pretty easily blocks her punch, and like, once again, this kind of feels like a wild power amp. Like, Broski from before, maybe he truly was, like, heavily debuffed by Peleo. Like, that had to be it or something, because this leap in power is insane. Like, he went from getting casually flexed on by Gawain to able to no-sell her punch while damaged. And who knows, maybe it wasn't a full power punch, because she doesn't even have her aura, but still. And Percy, why are you worried about PELLEGARDE being hurt when you could have healed him when you caught him? But no, you shut down your magic, bro. This is your fault. And we get to see that apparently PELLEGARDE just views this as a good handicap. And it seems like now, finally, Peleo'S magic has worn off. Meaning that essentially, PELLEGARDE really has been thinking backwards this entire time. So, all of this stuff he's done is with reverse controls. That's pretty darn impressive. That's a lot to do. I wonder how he threw the shield. But we get to see that Gawain isn't all too happy that PELLEGARDE's stepping up to the plate again. And she's ready to burn that man to a crisp. As she declares, she has just gotten the signed death warrant of a worthless worm. And the flames are heat. to the point where like Percy's actually just sent flying away from the sheer pressure of her releasing her aura. And the flex is so insane that even Tristan, with the wings out, has to catch Percy and drag him away. Like, straight up, he can't step in there. Meaning Gawain's power, at least raw, can just outkeep demon goddess hybrid. Like, what would happen if Tristan coated himself in darkness? Like, would he still not be able to go in there? I mean, this is goddess magic, but I'm not sure if this is arc particles in particular. It's gold colored magic, so maybe not. I'm not sure. I feel like Tristan should be able to walk right on through. However, we get to see Percival's like, no, Gawain, don't kill best boy. And we see that Gawain is like, yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. We about to have a Papa PELLEGARDE roast, baby. It's time to hook you inside your armor well done with a side of fries. But unfortunately for Gawain, don't mess with that boy. He's not one of them. He's straight, like, in a similar vein to how Gawain slammed Percival to get him some pain with a simple thrust of his rounded weapon, by the way. Like, his straight rounded weapon with no magic infusion straight caves her ribs in. Like, hard caves them in, too. Like, she is straight crunching, crickety, cracking. And PELLEGARDE is completely unharmed by her blaze. Which means, hypothetically, he has... well, notably, we don't know if that deeper, darker fire we saw from about 2 chapters ago, I believe, is actually Hellblaze. But it was at least the same distinct coloration. But regardless of that, it seems like he has a heat resistance that's even beyond sunshine. Like, nothing is cooked. Not his weapon, not himself, not his armor. Even his cape is just fine. So all that heat that once blew him back before is now pretty much irrelevant. Which, once again, it raises questions. Like, was Peleo's magic really doing that much that it would drastically debuff his durability and stuff like that? We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide. I love PELLEGARDE. And I love that PELLEGARDE is now talking his own smack. He's like, huh, don't berate me. And we see Gawain is like, I don't care what you say. And she leaps to the heavens and goes down to swing with Lita. Now, notably, at first, when I first read this, I thought this was a possibly, like, crazy feat for PELLEGARDE. Because mainly, we know that even with regular weapons, infusing your magic into them, when it's an attack-type magic like Sunshine, gives you a 10 times amp. And it seemed like PELLEGARDE, at first, was kind of just tanking the shots. Meaning, his durability and likely attack potency from that was 10 times that of Gawain's, which seemed kind of nutty. And you can see how she swings and slams that. She seems to be doing some damage. Even Percival is being pushed back, and Tristan even has to close his eye to avoid all the dust and debris that's flying everywhere. However, we see that through all the dust and smoke, PELLEGARDE is kind of just chilling. He's taking the attack pretty well. And in fact, he's not just taking it, he's actually parrying it. Meaning he's able to keep up in raw speed with Gawain while fatigued and damaged. And even Tristan has to put respect on his name. Like, straight up like, wow, that's amazing. Takes a lot of... It's weird that they use the word talent and not skill. Like, at least for me, I always view talent as something that's innate. And when someone says, oh, such and such is so talented, I'm like, oh, so they did this really quickly? They're like a prodigy of some sort? Oh, no, they've been doing this for years. I'm like, oh, so they're skilled. Like, that seems like the variation. Like, talent doesn't seem the appropriate word here. But it appears that as long as you can see Gawain, she's kind of useless. To the point where all that magic power and all that force behind her attacks is just easy to deflect and easy to ignore, essentially. To the point where PELLEGARDE straight looks her dead in the face and is like, your moves are extremely basic. Just like you. And proceeds to slap her Lita away and just straight up tell her, like, yo, moves like that, even with all that power, is never going to defeat me. And he's straight, like, he parries Lita into the ground with his mace-esque weapon. And then in the next motion, swings up with it so hard that he knocks Gawain. Like, he's straight. Like, he took the driver of the like button, by the way, which is free. And I greatly appreciate if you hit it, because it helps out the channel a lot. It also helps me out a lot. Thank you so much. Also, if you hit the subscribe button, if you haven't already, that's greatly appreciated. However, but he swings. I was about to call it a whole run. He was going for that hole in one, essentially, because he knocks her to the heavens. We know Gawain is a titan of a titan, and she was sent multiple Gawains into the air, to the point where it actually straight up knocked her out of her aura. Like, he hit her so hard, her magic shut down. And we see both Percy and Tristan just blown away by this, and Gawain was also blown away by this. But gravity kicks in and she slams straight into the ground. And Pellegarde is just posted up. And we get to see that even with him all posted up, all the rocks falling and all this clatter, he's like, yo, let me not lie to you. You are a knight of prophecy. Your potential is truly without bound. But, actually, hold on, let me read this like Pellegarde. You are a knight of prophecy. Your potential is truly without bound. But your abilities haven't caught up yet. You're still an amateur. Perfect, you say? Don't make me laugh. You haven't mastered your excess strength. You're letting it throw you around instead. If you had fought anyone besides me, you'd be dead now. Admit your shortcomings and train well, if you want to have a long life. Golly gee Williker. So what this does is it leaves the door open for Mael to step in. Notably, there was questions like Gawain seemed to have some sort of mastery over her magic already, so he thought maybe like someone had taught her. But it seems like no. She just has no idea what she's doing. She's just throwing around the raw power. Just like Escanor did. Escanor didn't necessarily have any real control over Sunshine. Sunshine was just controlling Escanor. And all that power was kind of jerking him around. And it seems to be the same case with Gawain. However, once again, the thing that I find more interesting about Gawain, that I'm going to be happy that we get to see, considering this is 16-year-old Gawain most likely, this is the start of the narrative for her, is the fact that we're gonna get to see her get control of it. We're going to get to see the progressive journey of where she starts to throw around her power, and her power not throwing her around. She's gonna grow as a warrior. She's gonna get more developed. Hopefully she gets a better looking weapon, because that stupid end of Escanor's axe is dumb. Just get her own axe. We need that Dabuzu arc to kick in real good. We need the Dubs arc. But straight up, golly gee willikers, Pellegarde really is different. And interestingly enough, something that's established here is that Pellegarde is not just being nice to Percy, he's being nice to all the knights. Like, legitimately, he's not gonna kill Gawain, even though Gawain has threatened his life, has sliced him straight down the middle, and overall has been nothing but unpleasant to him. He's like, yeah, you're a knight of the prophecy, you got a whole ton of potential, just live, just vibe. So that's very, very interesting. Admittedly, I thought Pellegarde's potential or his interest would only be limited to Percy, and like he was like Percy was going to be his little pet project that he was going to make into a super strong thing and possibly turn into an asset for Arthur. However, it seems like that isn't the case. It seems like any of the knights can be on Pellegarde's pickup roster, and he's not going to execute any of them, which is very, very interesting. I wonder, once again, what the meaning behind that is. Is it truly just an exercise in interest? Is he really simply that intrigued by the idea of these knights and like how strong they could hypothetically be, and if they could surpass people like him and Ironside? And once again, I mean, Pellegarde definitely, once again, I always bring this up because it's their only interaction that we see the two have in a combat sense. But Pellegarde does seem to be superior to Ironside, but if Ironside is anywhere within Pellegarde's range, and he can just casually manhandle Gawain, unless Lance and Tristan go brazy. We do got a plot, ladies and gentlemen. We do got a plot. That was the only thing I was scared of about Pellegarde being fodder. I was like, if he's fodder, where do we go from here? Like, everyone's going to be too strong. And Nakaba seemed to be leaning towards the whole idea that he was fodder, but I guess not. I guess we got some real threats in this business. And once again, as cool as Arthur and Pellegarde seem to be with each other, I'm still pretty confident Arthur doesn't have Pellegarde as one of his knights of the round. So, you know, they could go brains, you know what I'm saying? However, That's still very, very interesting. Pellegarde is a character with a whole ton of mystery behind him on multiple levels, despite how jovial and outgoing he seems to be, which only makes him all the more goated. However, we get to see that these words have definitely hit Gawain, to the point where she grits her teeth, lifts her arm, and slams into the ground, and then starts crying. Now, now personally, like this isn't the worst case scenario. Like, I know a certain commenter who's laughing in the distance right now. I can almost hear his laughter. I can hear his laughter as I speak, but I'm really not sure. Like, Gawain was doing so good. I'm not saying this isn't realistic, right? Especially considering I 100% believe Gawain had a really sheltered background, and obviously you can tell she's had no one beat the taste out of her mouth before. Like, this is definitely a first-time experience for her, so it would make sense. It's like a child, right? Like, the first time you tell a child no, they're gonna cry. They're gonna break down into tears and be mad and unhappy and upset. Except this isn't. I think the only reason it's like making my eyebrow twitch, like making my eye twitch a little bit, is like Gawain isn't a child. She's like in this context, like, I always call them kids because they're all supposed to be 16, but in this context, also, according to the times, she's a full-grown adult, and she's crying because she got the taste beaten out of her. But again, another thing about it, I can't get mad at her for that, because if I got the taste beaten out of me, I'd be crying too. Like, I can't knock the hustle. Like, straight up, if some random dude that I thought I could fauterize suddenly fauterized me, I'd be a little bit disappointed in myself. I'd probably break down crying too. However, it's just like, it's once again, right? Nakaba is essentially mirroring Escanor again. I know some people don't believe that, but it's pretty evident based on how their narratives are going so far. They're having someone humble them, their power's in control of them, they're extremely strong, but they're reckless. Like, all these things are just direct Escanor parallels. So what I'm gonna assume is this crying is the parallel to Escanor's night form, essentially. Unless we find out that Gawain actually does straight up have a night form. I'm assuming that's what this is. She hasn't shown any mutation. That's the only reason I don't think she has a quote-unquote night form, because no mutation has been done as time progressed here. There's no mention of the position of the sun or anything like that. Gawain hasn't been changing, and neither her power supposedly hasn't even been fluctuating. So, at least no one has pointed it out just yet. So I'm assuming this is the equivalent to Escanor reverting into his kind, much more pacifistic self. But I guess both of these moments add depth to their respective character, right? Like, it's not like Gawain being a crybaby because you got the snot beaten out of her is necessarily a bad thing, and it adds more layers to her character and shows how the sheltered life definitely has had a negative effect on her interpersonal development, and also her ability to handle loss and failure. And thus, this crying fit is definitely something that makes this is where base brain pencil and logical pencil are having a vehement disagreement and argument in my head, because base brain pencil is like, we do not like when characters cry ugly, especially over something that seems so trivial in the narrative. Bad. But logic brain pencil is like, well, it makes sense though. So we can't get mad. What do y'all think? This is something I'm gonna flip over to y'all. What do y'all think about the end of the chapter? Like, Gawain just busting out into tears, being all sad that she lost. Because I'm gonna go, you know what, I'll give my own stance just because I want to, like, I do not like it when, like, other people be like, here's everything, now we'll let you decide. I don't like doing that. But to give my take on it, it makes perfect sense, and give me a couple days and I probably won't even care about it. But in the heat of the moment, and in my initial reaction, and when I saw the spoilers, I was like, oh, come on now, this is stupid. Why do you gotta do a female character like this? Like, I wouldn't see Escanor breaking down and crying like this. I wouldn't see Bond breaking down and crying like this. I would see King breaking down and crying like this. Let me shut my mouth. However, that's the end of the chapter, and it was pretty darn solid. I'm not gonna lie. You know what else is solid? The like button. If you couldn't mind hitting that, and also hitting the subscribe button, it would really help me out. However, overall, the chapter was really, really good. I am happy that I was wrong, and that Pellegarde is not fodder. In fact, that he's actually a demon. I greatly appreciate that. I also like the idea that Gawain definitely still does have a path for growth. I like the establishment that Tristan's ability as a leader is going to be consistently shaky, considering he does not have the gusto to rein in some of his fellow teammates, which is definitely going to bite him in the butt later. I like the idea that there's going to be this whole narrative about him pursuing his role as not only a leader, but as a person who may or may not be willing to draw a blade against his friends. I like that the whole narrative of Pellegarde is ever expanding with the idea that he directly cares for Percy, possibly more as just a test subject, but also an individual. And at the same time, he respects all the four knights enough to not want to execute any of them in comparison to just caring about Percy. I like the hypothetical implications of Gawain, both in their confident self and their fragile self, due to their upbringing and their nature, both which make sense based on the writing so far and what we can reasonably assume about her respective past. All this is great. All we needed, drizzle Lancelot. No, I'm kidding. This chapter was stuffed to the brim so well that I can't even be mad at. However, those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support for as low, where you can support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, live reactions, and more. Thank you so much for watching once again. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.